coming to Show Up Chicago. Yeah, give yourselves a round of applause. Thank you. This is amazing. This is so cool to see. My name is Maureen Cool, and on behalf of all of my pals here at Blue Beginnings Indivisible, I'm very excited to welcome you here tonight. Thank you so much to the Hideout for having us. Let's give them a round of applause, as usual. As mentioned before, I'm just going to say this again. Please, if you need to, especially those of you that are standing, if you need to go out into the bar, we will have audio and video out there as well. Everyone, please drink water, but also if you want to get something from the bar, tip your bartenders. They are wonderful people as well. I think all of the seats are full. Okay, great, awesome. We're glad to have you guys here. Whether you have been here before or this is your very first time, we are very glad you guys are here. I personally also always love to you all give yourselves another round of applause for showing up. You guys are doing the work, and we are so appreciative of that, and we see that. So I personally have been involved in this show for about 6 months, and we've covered a number of really excellent topics. We've heard about what we want from national Democrats, as well as the law and all of the illegal things that Trump has been doing in his second term. Last month, for those lucky people that were here, we discussed mass transit and how all of the transit agencies around us are doomsday prepping for massive loss in budget. But again, we thank you all for being here. We are showing up. We, as show organizers, have felt an increasing obligation to use this room, use this space, and use all of you wonderful people that show up to make Chicago a place where each of us can thrive in every neighborhood. So tonight, we'll be covering what I think is one of our most important topics yet. How do we support our neighbors who are increasingly threatened by the unethical and unlawful actions of ICE? Those who have been here for shows before know that I usually try to make some jokes here. Kind of hard to make some jokes on this topic, but here's why. A few months ago, ICE activities and counter-protests in Los Angeles made the national news. But, unfortunately, we also know that ICE is operating and active in our own city, too. On June 4th, in Chicago, federal agents arrested at least 10 people who were told to check into a monitoring program administered by U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement in the South Loop. My alderman, Anthony, who represents the 35th Ward, was thrown down to the ground as he tried to protect our neighbors. We've also been seeing this all over the news. The federal government is terrorizing our neighbors with legal trickery. Oh, we don't have audio. Can you hear it? You can hear it. Tell us what they're saying.
Due process rights. The lawsuit lays out what it claims
Let me
is
start
one
it
of
over.
many ways DHS has attempted to ramp up immigration. A lawsuit filed this week alleges the Department of Homeland Security is colluding with the Justice Department to intentionally strip people of basic due process rights. The lawsuit lays out what it claims is one of many ways DHS has attempted to ramp up immigration arrests after the White House demanded 3,000 arrests per day on May 21st. Days after that quota mandate, this email shows the DOJ's Executive Office for Immigration Review instructed immigration judges that attorneys for the DHS would be moving to dismiss cases to meet demands of an increasing workload. And at the same time, DHS would be conducting enforcement at the court.
This blew my mind. I know that we are all very informed people here, but this was something that I was what the actual heck is going on? Local organizations in Chicago are fighting back against this. Sorry. Oops, not him.
Filed.
Not him again. There we go. A coalition of immigrant legal rights organizations have submitted a lawsuit against this, so we're working on it. There's also the very real truth that ICE is arresting and detaining U.S. citizens, which they have absolutely no legal authority to do. We know that they've arrested a 25-year-old Army veteran, a 71-year-old grandmother, a 23-year-old woman who was 9 months pregnant, a school superintendent, and many more, all U.S. citizens. But what can we do? More of these. I don't know about about you guys, but the social media community organizing that I've seen has been incredibly inspiring. I've seen Facebook groups and Instagram posts warning of ICE's whereabouts, neighbors who are looking out for neighbors. But what is the most effective? That is what our guests are here tonight to answer. I'm really, really excited. They will get proper introductions in just a moment from Marge and Tom, but we do have with us tonight State Senator Graciela Guzman, an outspoken champion for immigrants' rights, and Rey Wences, who is the Senior Director of Deportation Defense at the Illinois Coalition for Immigrant and Refugee Rights. This is incredible. This is awesome. There's going to be actual action taken from tonight's meeting. Tonight's panel is being recorded for a podcast and radio show, so time is tight, and so are our microphones. We will have a Q&A after this, so please hold your questions. Think about your questions that you have for our panel for the end. There were a few note cards in the audience. We do really love it if when we get to the Q&A, you have a question, you could think about it, write it down beforehand, so that when we call on you, you're ready with your question for our wonderful panel. Is that everything? Great, awesome. Thank you all for being here. Without further ado, I will pass it to Marge and Tom.
What a fantastic crowd. Thank you so much for coming. I know we're here because we all care deeply about this important topic. I wish it was for a more fun reason, but I'm glad that we can all at least be together and make some good things happen. So welcome to Show Up Chicago. This is a community gathering and political panel show presented monthly here at the Hideout. I'm Tom Moss with Marge Halpern. We're part of the leadership team of the Indivisible Blue Beginning chapter. So tonight we're talking about how to help some of our most vulnerable neighbors, whether they came here through legal channels or crossed our border in secret. Anyone who doesn't now hold a U.S. passport, and even as we've heard, some who do, will be at risk of arrest by ICE. Migrants have followed the rules spelled out for them in the past, or maybe they didn't, but that matters little at this point because those rules have abruptly changed. Now, what does this mean for those of us who do have U.S. citizenship and are angry and want to do something to protect our neighbors living peacefully among us and contributing? What can each of us do? We're pretty sure that's why you're here, and that's why we've invited tonight's panelists to share their deep knowledge.
So let's welcome State Senator Graciela Guzman, who represents the 20th District. And if you don't keep track of our governing map, I will let you know that this comprises parts of Logan Square, Albany Park, Avondale, and other nearby neighborhoods. She might even be your representative and senator, and you don't even know. But now you know. Right. Graciela is also the first Salvadoran American elected to the Illinois General Assembly. Relevant in a lot of ways tonight. She's the oldest of 5 children raised by parents who fled the Salvadoran Civil War. Rey Wences, Senior Director of Deportation Defense at ICIRR, the Illinois Coalition for Immigrant and Refugee Rights. Director also of Communications at Unemployed Workers United, a national organization focused on economic justice. Locally, Rey continues their contributions to Chicago as a member of the United Working Families Executive Committee. So, first, thank you, our heartfelt thanks for all that you both have done and are still doing to help our neighbors who need all of our help, and for joining us tonight when you have a lot of things going on, we know. We start from the perspective that there is a wide range of answers to the foundational questions that we have. What can I do to help? There are a lot of ways to help, and there are ways that will fit some people better than others. So some options also are going to be easier than others. Some have a higher personal risk than others. Each of us will make a choice about what it is we can do and are comfortable doing, but we want to cover the full range tonight so we understand all the options. So let's start from where we think things are today. We haven't yet seen that high-profile military operation that we saw in LA, but we think it's coming. And in the meantime, ICE is certainly here and making arrests in our communities. deporting folks from neighborhoods all over the city and the suburbs every day. Sometimes very public, other times isolated, discreet ways. I'd like to hear from both of you just a brief description of what you think is happening, what you know is happening in the city right now. Rey, do you want to start?
Yes, I'll start. Hello, everyone. Rey, my pronouns are they, them. Let's see. What is happening? So I'll tell you that we at the Illinois Coalition for Immigrant and Refugee Rights, ICIRR for short, I joined the team back in March. Before that, I was the first deputy at the Office of Migrant and Refugee Rights under Mayor Johnson's administration. And I think when the elections happened, it was very shocking, the results to see. It was shocking and not shocking. And I remember thinking, where do I want to be when this hits the fan? And the reason why is because what's happening every day and what we're seeing in our screens, whether through the phone or the media, the level of attention that it has been getting, it's exposing something that has been happening for a really long time. And I think what we are seeing now is a manifestation of a bolder agency with an emboldened and really doing things that I had never seen them do. And so we are, every day, the Family Support Network hotline gets calls starting at 7 in the morning. That's when the messages start coming in, specifically sharing of how people are being detained, where rates are happening. And it is heartbreaking. There's been hundreds of reports that the Rapid Response Network teams, and I can talk more about that, have been doing, but I just want to share a couple of stories. No names here, but just to give you and you've seen in the news, people, a child that was left alone in a car after their dad got taken. Cars with keys in the ignition, still running for hours. Cars getting towed because no one is coming back to claim them. People calling the hotline scared and asking, how do I leave this country? I don't want to live like this. It is a really intense moment for a lot of people in our community. And as much as the media is putting the light on what's happening, I think the one thing that they're all not showing is the ways in which people are coming together and resisting. And so I hope that, moving forward, we can all continue to engage in spaces like this one and others, because every single person knowing one more egregious thing that they are doing is, I think, unmasking the terror, and it's creating a moral crisis. And we are in this moment where we have to choose and we have to pick a side. And what this administration is showing us is that they are on the side of dehumanizing people for what they look like, where they come from, and because it does not meet, people do not meet the standard that this administration is trying to set. And the scary thing is that this is a test, because we have seen how it went from undocumented people to legal permanent residents to citizens, and now they're going for constitutional rights. Very scary stuff. And in the years of organizing that I've done, started organizing really young, I would say now like 16 years of organizing, it's something that we're breaking our heads, and what we have to do is continue to come out, to share stories, to expose the way that this administration is dehumanizing our neighbors.
Graciela, from the position of an elected official, what's the scenario that you're looking at?
Hey everyone, Graciela Guzman, she, hers, Graciela in this room, Senator Guzman, and people that piss me off. And so just for quick context, I just got inaugurated. January 8th was technically my first day on the job, and so Rey was asking me how many months we've been at this, and it's like 6 going into 7. And so my entire elected period has been this fragment of getting to organize with rapid response, because that was literally first day, was, the calls, the texts, the correspondence about, family and what do we do, and all of those cases in our community. So you mentioned some of the communities that, I proudly represent, but one of the ones also in the list is Belmont Creighton, which is a very, very long history of being disproportionately impacted by a lot of gerrymandering, which makes a lot of the resourcing at Belmont Creighton really, really hard. But it's also deeply immigrant and deeply working class. And so what we knew from the last Trump administration was that ICE walked around very, very openly. You could see them in crosswalks, you would see them in front of schools, you would see them in daycares. It was pretty open and blatant. And so that gave us an understanding that they would likely be in Belmont Creighton and other communities like ours, like all throughout Chicago and Illinois, on day one, which is what they committed to do. Like day one, we're going to be releasing this heinous agenda upon people. And so as you can imagine, what we have been up to every day since then has been a combination of how we work with rapid response networks in our Northwest area to receive and intercept many of the calls that Rey discusses. I've been known to be on my way to a meeting and say I'm now going to be 30 minutes late because I'm going to respond instead. Because if I can, I will. And I think that's the principle that you're hearing from Rey and from many of us. If the lowest denominator means that your presence can make the difference for a neighbor, that it can help us validate if something is true or false, that it can help a neighbor in a neighborhood understand that there is a system that is bigger than just that one person or that family or just that block, that those are all tangible things that we can do. And Marge, I appreciate your conversation and introduction of the concept of risk, because we talk about that all day long with individual people that are saying, what can we do? And we ask them, well, talk to us about your family structure, talk to us about your immigration status, talk to us about your comfort level. And I know that as an elected, I come with the highest privilege possible. To be able to show up and say, I'm State Senator Graciela Guzman, come mess with me, but I still have the badge, right? And so if I can put myself before folks that are responding, I'm going to. And that's one of the reasons that I think that integration of rapid response, elected office, legal resources, like literally every asset coming together to think about what my dad calls it. He says, when you think about putting a kid to bed, what do we put on the kid? The blanket, right? And it's literally the shroud of protection of our community for all of those assets and resources to come together to figure out how it is that we can protect not just self and others, but our entire community.
So it's hard to resist the urge to ask what's going to happen next, though speculating is tough, maybe not so much in this case. You've talked about the personal human stories that you're seeing in your work and in your district. We look to LA, I guess, as the leading edge of what's been going on. They seem to have pulled back at least the military response. Whether that worked or not and what that even means, I guess, is another question. So I guess, without the aid of a crystal ball, but with your expertise, what do you see as happening next? Are we likely to see a military response here?
You're like, let me whichever of you would like to answer that, go for it.
You can start with Rey.
Yeah, go ahead, Rey.
Let's see. I want to... We don't have a crystal ball. And that can be very anxiety-inducing. So I think, one, recognizing that here in Chicago and in Illinois, there's been a history of really great campaigns, organizing campaigns, to make the state one of the strongest states in terms of pro-immigrant legislation, and the city as well. I think that organizations and the infrastructure, the funding that has gone to build the community-based organizations that are out in the community, all of that is part of the key here of what could happen. Because over time here, also in Chicago, there's been really strong grassroots organizing led by undocumented people, led by people directly impacted. And what we have learned, and I myself, formerly undocumented, is that we keep each other safe. And so from that perspective, with the conversation around risk, I think what we can expect is that we have networks that we have built over time, whether it's because you're part of an Indivisible, or you're part of that network of community-based organizations that is in the community, or you are part of the rapid response network. All of that, I think, has given us an ecosystem of potential coordination and communication that we will need to be able to respond effectively and not tire ourselves out, because we have to be very strategic. Part of what's happening in California is that there are many networks. There's actually, I was on a call with somebody from California telling me, how many hotlines do you have? I was like, we just have one. Oh, we have like 12 over here. I was like, oh, so that must be going great, right? No, we're not working together, right? Like there are, again, so there are definitely, I think, factors that we have to consider in terms of how we are engaging locally, because I'll be honest, I got the call, what was it, June 4th, I was out there with Alderman Quesada and others. The next weekend, we got word that parents were getting picked up after going to a check-in at Broadview detention processing center in Maywood. And then I think it was the next week, I'm seriously having PTSD from all of this. We were literally in the office trying to figure out, okay, what's happening in California could be coming down here. What do we do? And we had to turn everything around to essentially say, okay, when we get this amount of calls into the hotline, that means that we're gonna activate an emergency plan. Okay, who are the people that we need to be in touch with? All of that, I think, is actually putting us in a better place for when it happens. I have been waiting on it, unfortunately. I hate to say this.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
Like the National Guard coming down,
yeah.
And there are so many things that we will. I don't know what will happen, even if they come down, right? But what I do know is that we have a network, we have a centralized way of communicating, and I know that people have come out, and I know that there are really strong organizers that can pave the way for responding. And we're all gonna have to do something, right? But I think it's the what am I going to do when that comes down?
You say when it comes down. So
Yeah.
you're expecting Trump to activate the Illinois National Guard?
I don't have a crystal ball.
Of course.
But
preparing for it.
But I am preparing for it.
Right.
My approach is harm reduction, and in this case, this administration has shown me that they're being aggressive about it. So the best way, for me at least, to also be able to survive day by day is take control of what I know. And what I know is that we need to continue every day, every extra day that we get to do one more training, every extra day that we get someone else involved, those are more eyes, those are more people, and I know that we're going to fight back.
So, Graciela, we are a sanctuary city, a sanctuary state. Maybe just briefly be sure that we all know what that means, and then tell us what it means in this scenario that Rey is talking about.
Yeah, I want to go back to an important principle that Rey said, right? I think the fact that, one, to your point, Marge, we are a sanctuary state because of a series of laws that we have passed, things that stop the cooperation between police and ICE, things that curtail the kinds of information that they're allowed to receive, the fact that thanks to many years of organizing, we don't have detention centers in the state of Illinois, right? Those are all principles that right now are codified in state law. And so those are some principles that earlier in the year we had been thinking about how could we fortify more of them, right? What any cracks in the law and the policy. But in a good way, our Attorney General Kwame Raoul has been litigating to ensure that at the highest courts possible that those are not protections that are being shortchanged or cut into in any way, which means that our state action has been put on pause while federal litigation is happening, which I think really speaks to the need for organizing to be happening everywhere, right? So we need community response and coordinated rapid response. You've heard that from Rey. We need what our legal community is doing because we've seen the power of injunction. We've seen the power of our legal community being present and providing that visibility work of helping intercept. You know, I was at Broadview with Robin, I see you, and many other folks, right, that were helping our folks understand their rights, right? And I saw what that did in the numbers that day. Who walked away with a bracelet versus who got detained that day, right? There's a really tangible difference. So point is, at different planes, different things are happening to ensure that our sanctuary status gets to continue at the state of Illinois, because from de facto, how ICE is operating in the state of Illinois versus other places is different, is a different terrain because of the laws that have been passed in this state and in this city.
And I wouldn't underestimate in any way what the Attorney General is doing, because he has been in from the beginning in these national suits, so that when the Supreme Court ruled that nationwide injunctions aren't a thing anymore and that only those who participate in the lawsuits will be covered, our guy is there standing up for Illinois. So I'd love to have him come join us for one of future meetings. But in the meantime, you mentioned that you have been looking at what the holes are regularly to fortify our sanctuary state regulations. And there's been recent discussion of one area that we don't have, which is prohibiting law enforcement from acting without any form of identification. There's an issue about masks, but there's an issue about badges. We don't know who is picking people up off the street, and we're starting to see from videos around the country, some of them are vigilante imposters who we have no idea. Can Illinois tighten that up and act in that direction and require at least to let it go through the courts, but pass the law first?
Yeah, I think where we're at is a yes and, right? So, you know, some of the principles that I know folks have written and called in about have been absolutely, to your point, you know, the proper identification of folks that are kidnapping our neighbors right now, face coverings. We have also heard of folks hopping on Amazon or going into other stores and basically, you know, buying, you know, uniform look-alike stuff so that they can act as if they are ICE to further scare our community. Point is, these are all principles right now that some of these have been filed in the legislature. Some of them are still being cross-compared with California, New York, and other states that are also thinking about this, because I think the other principle that I want to introduce is we can introduce something in the state of Illinois and it changes the atmosphere for other sanctuary states. So we want to be responsible about the moment, which is what I want to say, you know, here in terms of like the research that I've seen. We're doing it right now. You might see some of these pieces sooner than later, but I think the goal is to try to make sure that they're being done in partnership with other sanctuary states and with our Attorney General to make sure that we're doing everything in the right order.
That sounds great. And you mentioned this issue about Amazon, and I've watched that for months now, really, before Trump was elected even, where people would run videos of themselves in these jackets in a Home Depot or something to frighten people. Maybe that's not on the list that we came in with, but maybe that is the kind of thing people can do, right, to Amazon and protest that they make that available, especially if you're a Prime member and have some other influence and relationship. I don't know how much Amazon
was that a wink march? Was that a wink out of you?
I'm not even winking, Graciela. I'm just saying it.
I've discovered that you can live without Prime. There's a few things you aren't able to watch on Prime Video, but there's a lot of places you can buy things. It's amazing. You walk down the street and there's people selling things. It's amazing. So we want to talk about preparation. We want to shift a little bit to preparation and action. But let's first start with our government leaders and start to think about what we can impress upon them. What have our elected officials been doing? What's Pritzker been doing and Johnson been doing at the city and state levels to protect our communities? And by definition, then what more can we or should we be asking of them? And let's start with Graciela.
Yeah, so I mean, I think what you've seen, you know, both from the mayor and from the governor has been a consistency that our sanctuary statuses, those are not going anywhere. I think it's specific to the caucuses that I'm a part of. I'm a member of the Latino caucus in the Senate. I'm also part of the Progressive caucus. We've been able to have open discourse around principles. Hey, this happened in my community. Can you help me understand? Is this a breach of the Trust Act? Is this something that can be elevated? So we get to have, that level of, this is an example, help me understand if we're in accordance with the law, or if this is an opportunity to fortify out of those examples. And I think that's really important because things move really, really quickly, right? So oftentimes we're moving at the speed of someone's picture, someone's video, someone's recognizance of what may have happened, but we also understand that there are broader pieces of a pattern. ICE is acting in a pattern. It may be chaotic pattern, but it's a pattern, and it's something that can be learned and studied and disrupted, right? So I think there are times that people call something in and they'll say, I'm not sure if it's just a one-time observation, and then we'll be like, oh, it's actually the 5th or 6th time I've heard this over the last 2 weeks, and then you kind of lock it away and you're like, what am I gonna do with that? So anyway, having electeds that get to have that level of discourse with our highest folks in office ensures that not only do we get to reinforce the values that we should be living in the state of Illinois and in Chicago, but they're also tactically moving with an awareness that gets to say, rapid response is a welcome tradition in the city and in the state. It is something that can be operated whether you're a community member or whether you are in a government office, because it's keeping our community safe, informed, and empowered.
So we're going to be talking about rapid response and training here in a little bit, so I definitely don't want to lose track of that idea. Ray, have you been satisfied with what you've seen so far from the mayor and the governor?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like
You're among friends.
put on the spot here. No, I mean, I will say, having worked in government, I think it's in the mayor's office. One thing that they have done is reach out to community partners and essentially say, hey, we heard about this. Is that important information? Or hey, is there something going on because we're getting calls from this ward? Is there can we help be a messenger to factual information, because they know that we are coordinating the rapid response network. Additionally, they've also taken feedback from community organizations, things like the Know Your Rights on the CTA. Definitely, we have an open line of communication, I would say, in terms of also calling out and calling them in when we feel like there needs to be more. And so far, they've been receptive. And again, like the senator was saying, Graciela was saying, yeah, I think they... sorry, I lost my train of thought. See? Because I turned around to look at you, and I was like,
I would pick up on the last thing you were saying, which is how the city has resources and can share information.
Yes.
The city has a citywide alert system, and I don't know how segmented it could be, but I don't see why it wouldn't be to the point where they could notify everyone in Belmont-Cragen that there's some arrest happening.
yeah.
Is that something that would be a good use of the city's system?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's worth discussing it. I mean, I'll be honest. When the network, and I'll do a little bit of history here. Can I?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. All right. Back in 2017, there was a group of young organizers that was called the People's Response Team. Does anyone remember the People's Response Team? Yeah. Right. And they were using back then Twitter, before it got taken over by trolls. They would essentially start listening to the radio scanners of police and would go, and if there was an incident that happened, they would try to contact the family, support them, especially with grieving services and things like that. It was a whole thing. It was a system and a network, right? So they brought out from California a couple of organizers that had done Cop Watch and that had been kind of trained in the history of the Black Panther Party and how they used to also be out in their community, essentially just seeing what was going on, and also to highlight and address police brutality in their communities. So then in 2017. We get trained, and as immigrant rights organizers, because everything is sectored, right? We were like, hey, this would really be we could use this for Migra Watch, right? So then that's how the team started, kind of going around. However, it's not until this year where I feel like a lot of resources have been put into to build it out more. Where we're also running into some challenges with that. Part of the reason why and I can talk more about this. Part of the reason why sometimes you'll see us being careful, or maybe people don't know this, but we are, as an organization, very, very mindful of what we are putting out on social media, what we are communicating. And I think that level of fast communication and coordination takes a lot of care and also intention. And so I don't know right now if like, I guess the question would be like an alert, right? I know that there's apps and things like that, and I've also heard from other people being like, hey, I downloaded the app and I'm just getting all these reports and I don't know what to do with them. So I guess the question is, why are we gonna put out the information? And if we are talking about potentially pitching this to the city, I guess the question would be, what is the purpose of sharing the information in a way that is also not spreading fear, right? Like, how do we also are cautious of unintended consequences?
Because it's one thing to have information, but then you have to have the coherent plan to use that information, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
And you have to know what to do with the information when you get it. But right now, you talked about the apps. I've seen both sides about Ice Block. You must download that, it's the best. Oh wait, don't do it, it's not reliable. Where do you go for the most reliable information is a good question. And there should be multiple places to go, right, Graciela?
But I think that's where, like, the partnership, so I think I'm thankful that we have one hotline in the sense that it really helps with amplifying across our community. You're gonna call this number if you see something, if you are concerned with something, if you or a family has directly been at all impacted by detention, there is a safe place you can call. And it sounds profoundly simple, but at a moment, I've been with families where they're like in deep crisis, absolutely in the middle of a panic attack, and all I'm able to get this message across is, if you call this number, I promise you that somebody that trusts and speaks your language is going to help you. And it is the foundational message that just kind of cuts through, right? So I think having that power to ensure that that is a message that is just signal waved all across Illinois is really, really important, right? This is a number you can call to get help. Two, I think some of what Rey mentioned, the process build that we get to make now as ICIRR starts to map out what is happening, where we have rapid response networks, where we don't, we actually start to build systems, right? So what happens when, let's say, someone in my community calls this number, the rapid response, the basically like the network that we have in the Northwest gets a message that says, at Wrightwood and Kimball, there might be a possible reporting. We then get to have the trusted source to say, we don't know if something is there or not, but we can now dispatch people that are trusted to go check it out. Is it true? Is it false? If it's false, we get to now, in our hyper-local way, on the Facebook chats and WhatsApps and the many ways that are very specific to our community, we're able to say, we hear you, this was really scary, but nothing was there, but let me reinforce the message. If you need help, call this number, right? And if we saw something, guess what? We now have trained people that are on the ground, ready to, hopefully we haven't had to do it yet, where we've actually been able to intercept ICE directly yet, from my understanding in the Northwest, but if we had to, we'd be ready to go. We've practiced. We've talked about this scenario. We're able to document. We know who to contact. We know how to call for more help and backup, right? We know how to do all of that in a safe manner. And I think I want to say that too, because our communities engage with systems, whether they are police or not, in different levels of trust and mistrust. Right? So one of the things that I see often in our Facebook chats is often what you said, Marge. There's a lot of apps, and someone will say it starts out free, but then on day 3, they start saying that I have to pay $10 every time I want to look at the app. Or they'll take my information, right? And so having a trusted source, again, that comes from our community, deeply powerful, because there's opportunists that are very, very fine, feeding off of the fear of my people right now. So that's one element. Two, again, all of these systems need to speak to how can we as neighbors directly put resources in the hand of our neighbors, which is hard to say, right, when it would be simple, I think, to think about like a world where hopefully everything was more connected than it is. But right now, those human pieces need to be the glue. So the bigger the network, the more people that are trained, the wider the understanding of the family support network, and the more that you see it everywhere in our community, the more that we signal wave. This is a community that is knowledgeable, this is a community you can trust, and this is a community that has your back.
Yeah. Thank you. And I want to add, we have also been talking about this question of how do we also share the factual information that we are getting, right? So we are not at the level of posting every time that something gets verified. I'm just gonna give you some numbers. Between the weekend, the week of June 14, June 15, Rapid Response Networks, the network, the teams within the network investigated about 105 reports that came in just in 1 week. And many of them are false. And some of them, unfortunately, are true, right? And so we work with the coordinators of that specific rapid response team, and we're like, okay, we as ICIRR have launched what we call the Illinois Text on ICE tool, text tool. We are trying to build that out, and essentially what people can do is sign on to receive text messages. When one of the rapid response teams verifies and it's confirmed that there's been an immigration arrest, we ensure that we can send a message with factual information and a link to Know Your Rights website, and then send that text to the zip codes in that area, right? To also try to, keep that information within, and we work with the teams and they tell us, hey, can you include this other zip code, right? So that's also how we're able to see the coverage of the rapid response network statewide.
Right, that's the kind of localized alert that I was thinking the city would do better to come from the network. I think I'm hearing the first thing that everyone in this room could do is put that rapid response phone number into your phone and contacts. If you need to do that, we have QR codes posted all around. One of them leads you to ICIRR's page, and you'll get all of that.
I think even saving the graphic on your phone, on your photos,
for the Know
so
Your
that
Rights
when you
graphic.
see someone report it in various channels, because that's the thing that often happens. Someone will post it in one community chat, all of a sudden it's been shared 40 times. And so even if you fact check it, it's been spread all over the place, but usually I'm able to just have it on my phone, I drop it, and I'm like, can you call and help verify here? And then, from there it follows.
Right. So let's build out that list a little more. Any of us could be present when a raid happens. You could be in the grocery store in your car behind another car that gets pulled over. We know all the scenarios. If you're seeing the national news and the local news, we see what happens. So what else could we be doing to prepare if we find ourselves in the middle of a situation? And I say this expecting that this is a room full of people who are documented, which we don't know. But from that perspective, as Maureen told us at the beginning, doesn't matter if you have a passport. They don't seem to listen to that.
I think from the perspective of someone that is a citizen, and I think definitely what Graciela said, save the number on your phone. I actually also want to share that so there's two things here. There's a family support network hotline. That's the 855 number that you see in the cards, right? The purple and green cards. That is a hotline that actually has been in existence since 2011, but it was only used initially it was run by volunteers, and it was only for deportation defense. Over time, ICIRR has been building that piece of the program, and now it's more what we call a one-stop shop for referrals for people that are looking for what are the immigrant services available in the state. And so there's coordination with the state's Illinois Welcoming Centers. There's coordination with the organizations that run the citizenship workshops. There's coordination with the organizations that are doing the helping people apply for public benefits. All of this is like invisible work, honestly, that sometimes goes of the case person actually calling and doing that. So with the hotline now, we have the hotline, the one-stop shop for referrals, and then the first two options are immigration ICE sightings or deportation defense. For those calls, we actually work with organized communities against deportations, OCA, shout out, and they answer the hotline. So they're operators, they have operators that are answering the hotline around ICE sightings and deportation defense, because the ICE sightings is sometimes like quick calls, right? I think I saw something, take down the information, that piece. And then for the deportation defense, it's like a longer conversation, because sometimes people are calling saying like my relative is already in detention or my loved one is already in detention, what can I do? But yeah, so definitely know those differences, so that if you see someone that you're like, I don't know what immigrant services are available, tell them to call that number. It's true, now we have live operators, so the operators are on the lines from 7 to 9 p.m. And they are bilingual in English and in Spanish, and also we're answering other languages. I also want to share, right, that I'm coming in as really to lead a new department within ICIRR. This new department is the Deportation Defense Department, and so the hotline falls under that now. So, you know, we'll be building that tool up. And I think everyone should know that number, whether you are a citizen or not, and just share that information. Also, you know, contact your elected officials about what they are doing to protect the protections that we currently have. But I also think, and this is I keep saying this in trainings, like we all have a role to defend our rights. And the best role that we can all take right now is a know your rights defender. So what that means is that you are up to date on immigration policy, right? Not to be an expert per se, but at least know kind of what's happening, right? Because right now there's a lot of confusion. So you want to make sure that you're a truth teller, a fact checker, right? This is the best information that we can provide. So doing that, go to a know your rights training. Be an ally by just being openly pro-immigrant. Honestly, like I kid you not, after the administration started, I would walk into places and I felt like everybody was looking at me like, why are you here? But in the sense of like, are you scared, you know? Because unfortunately, this immigration situation is also racial profiling, right? And so then we have to be vocal and bold about our values and about the fact that we are here to protect our neighbors.
Ray, I know we gave a lot of information there. We've got QR codes, as Mark said, around the room. But for our podcast and radio audience, is there a clearinghouse, is there a website that folks could go to get these data in one place?
Yes, you can go to www.icir.com/FSN. And there you will be FSN. Yes. FSN, Family Support Network, and then you get access to the Know Your Rights cards. You can download it. But .org, my bad.
Oh, thank you.
ICIRR.
I just started.
.org
In March.
Yes.
/FCN.
Yes. Okay. So we're at the store, and ICE arrives and starts choosing people around us. We have our phones. We can call the hotline and report it. We can record what we're seeing. Is that a good idea? We see all these videos. Sometimes the person taking the video will shout out their rights, and I've seen videos where for lack of a better word, the agents turn around and walk away. I always think those probably weren't ICE if they backed off, because I don't know. But
Not
what are we
necessarily.
supposed to do? No?
So I think, one of the things we know about ICE, at least we used to, I don't know if it's the same anymore, Ray, let me know, but they have an itinerary of people that they're supposed to get through every day. So if we as a community disrupt and make their job harder, they're gonna want to move on to the next stop, right? So imagine you're in that store setting and all of a sudden 10 people are documenting and they're saying, you have rights, I know our rights, I have a right to document this scenario, and you're kind of like making it annoying for them to be able to be there and present. You're making it clear that it's unwelcome for them. They might choose to walk away.
Show me your warrant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, show me your warrant, right? We've seen it, and anecdotally, I can tell you that I had an instance in my district where there was folks that were in a workplace that had called because ICE had tried to enter. That place entered lockdown. The vehicle had been like circling for like over 30 minutes, but 5 neighbors showed up and were right in front, and we're starting taking video of every time this work vehicle came through. Guess what? When we got really close to the license plate, it didn't come back because they were like, these folks are gonna stay here all day long if it takes that so that folks don't get home, right? So we can make their day really annoying by documenting, by being present, by verbalizing that we know our rights, that we know the rights of our neighbors.
We have the right to document. We know we do. This was established decades ago by somebody who, I think in Illinois, who tried to video an officer on a roadside stop, and the right has been upheld repeatedly, and yet I also see the videos where the agents will say, no, put that away or I'm going to arrest you, you're obstructing. So back to this question of risk, I think people want an understanding of what do you do next? And at what point, how do you know at what point you have to surrender your rights for safety?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a personal choice. Yeah, I mean, I have had conversations with people that really are ready to take that informed choice, right? Because they have thought about what it would mean potentially for charges, right? It takes a lot of also, I think, preparation, thinking through, like what happens when an agent just decides to use their force, right? I think that for people that are undocumented or non-citizens, the level of risk is extremely high, right? But we're also seeing how even just looking a certain way, you can be racially profiled and targeted too, right? So I think it's the question that is being posed in terms of when do we give up our rights? It's honestly a provocative one because I don't want us to. And what is I think what is the role? Like what is the next step? There are people that have done and gotten arrested before. For civil disobediences, direct action, right? I have been part of some of those civil disobediences actions with undocumented people. We are living in a different time now where I think there's a real concern about what kind of charges and what kind of targeting could happen. We see what happened to Kilmar. We've seen what happened to Mahmoud, right? It's a really scary thing to. But if people are ready because they're gonna make that informed choice, in the scenario that you're laying out in terms of the mall or the store, I think definitely if you feel comfortable, take out your phone, record, shout out people's rights, tell them to show the warrant, and then follow your gut. Honestly, like if you haven't had the conversation with your family around like, hey, if one time you get a call that I'm gonna have felony charges. Because that could potentially be a thing. So I would say follow your gut. Your physical safety is a priority. Record and also vocalize what's happening. Share what's happening in that moment. So if an officer is coming at you, right? Maybe at some point you're like, hey, an officer is coming at me, and then maybe you shut down your phone. You're like, okay, I'm gonna walk away. What I will also say, don't turn your back. Right? Because then you don't know what could happen. We're really engaging with a very aggressive agency, and they're feeling really emboldened. So anything is fair game for them.
Well, this is really helpful, and I think my takeaway is go home and think about the scenario. Any of us could be in it at any time, and everyone is here because they want to do whatever they can to help. And one thing you want is to be prepared. The main thing you want is to be prepared. I would say know what your choices are and options are before you're in a situation like that.
And if I could, I think that principle of getting trained, if you haven't considered going through training, it's probably the biggest takeaway that I could give if you're considering entering a rapid response network or being a resource. We have to be as knowledgeable as we want our community to be. That's a reason for training. What Ray discussed as a skill is a muscle you have to practice. You have to scenario plan and think about it. That's another reason to go through training. And 3, you get to meet other people in your community that are like-minded about safety. That's really important too, right? Because I need to be able to show up at a spot and recognize that that person is also there with the same mission of protecting my neighbor too, right? So samesies, that's all reasons that I'm gonna encourage folks to go to training, because this is a skill set. The better skilled that we are, the more of a disadvantage we catch ISAT, right? Does that make sense? Strong community equals strong training means we can protect more people.
We've got just a couple minutes left, but I do want to make sure that we have more information about these trainings, where they happen, what they look like, and how people can sign up for them.
Yes, so I believe we're having a training with, training
Yes,
August
with
6th.
Indivisible
QR
Chicago.
codes, so check it out, sign up, 90 minutes, if I run through the slides really quickly, but I always give Q&A, so we get to spend some more time on the Zoom. It's virtual. We're having them in English on Thursdays and in Spanish on Fridays, so if you know someone that would prefer to do the Spanish one, the links are available. And then we are looking into making sure that we are also doing language justice and making sure that there are other languages available and things like that. But yeah, the training, again, 90 minutes, virtual, and it's a training that talks about the history of rapid response, shared terminology, because shared language is really important in this case, a whole summary of the ways in which this administration has increased the deportation and detention machine. Then we go into the different roles of what a rapid response team, the different roles within a team, some quick things there in terms of scenario, but since it's virtual, it's not an actual scenario. We're not gonna role play, but that's actually the stuff that you get to do with the team once you are part of it.
What date is that?
Oh, August 6th.
At what time?
So ICIRR.org, right?
Yes,
and you can
.org.
get all of that information, the ICIRR and all of the QR codes around the room.
To sign up for that particular thing. And there are things to do. I want to talk just real quickly about this. Even without ICE standing in front of you, there are a lot of needs for the migrant community. We're seeing networks. If you're not part of the RCC network on Facebook, that's a good place, I believe, to go. People who are not comfortable going to their own grocery store need someone to help shop for them. People who are in apartments where they can't work anymore need less expensive places to live, or help with their rent, or acquiring furniture, or baby needs, or other things that they're stuck for. That's part of my list. What's yours?
And then I think maybe part of that too is just where neighbors feel comfortable. I think we've also heard needs around companionship, right? So at the beginning of the year, we were hearing about some of my schools, 50% attendance drop because the parent didn't feel comfortable with their child going to school, or didn't have a way that they felt comfortable going to and from school because they were hearing about interceptions, like what Ray talked about. We've heard about folks that have said, can someone go with me to the clinic to make sure that nothing happens? Day-to-day occurrences are becoming really, really scary for people. And so point is, wherever folks are willing and able, we're also hearing about needs like that, where it's just as simple as I'm willing to go with my neighbor to do a routine thing that's needed.
And after all of this, too, if I happen to have an extra couple bucks burning a hole in my pocket, what is a good place to put that money?
Yeah, definitely donate to the organizations that are doing the work. And then I would say, I have seen, unfortunately, there's a lot of GoFundMe now to also support families that are being directly impacted by the raids, to pay the rent. There was a very public case of someone who, back in May, that needed support for their medical expenses because the father was detained. The father's still in detention. They're almost losing their business because of that. He was a business owner, and now the family has to make up, now this loss. So I think being part of the networks, it also helps be part of creating that ecosystem of support and care, and other needs may come up.
Well, we're going to turn to questions here in a minute, but we're going to close out our broadcast portion. So to do that, I will say Show Up Chicago is hosted by Blue Beginning Chapter of Indivisible Chicago, as well as our friends at the Hideout Inn. If you or your friends who aren't here tonight want to watch this show or rewatch it, because really, why wouldn't you want to? You'll find it at youtube.com/bluebeginning. Special thanks to Katie and Tim Tutton, Jody Boltman, Avery Reel, and the terrific staff at the Hideout. Our sound engineer tonight is Kiefer Douglas. Thank you, Kiefer. John Freeberg manages our broadcasting and recording with help from Lewis University. Thanks to CPTs Matt Cummings, Tim Hogan, and Mark Pinsky for broadcasting Show Up Chicago Sundays at 7 p.m. Not every Sunday, but the Sunday after this show, so this coming Sunday. Thanks to Blue Beginning Team, which includes Marge and me and Chloe Madvig and Maureen Kuhl and Nick Rabkin and Mike Lenahan. And of course, one more big round of applause for our fantastic guests doing so much great work, Senator Graciela Guzman and Rey Wences.
Before we turn this over to Maureen, I want to point out that one of the key QR codes that we have posted around the room is to join the Indivisible Chicago Immigration Working Group, and we hope that you will do that. We don't have an easy website place to join because we want people who have basic level of information to come in and be part of this group. That would be everyone in this room. We thank our friends at Indivisible and with the Immigration Working Group who have helped us put this panel together, and hope that you will sign up for that as well as go look for those resources at ICIRR's website.
Thank you so much for coming. I do most of my doom scrolling by myself, so once in a while it's good to be in a room with humans who care about the same things that we all care about. Thank you all for coming.
Okay, we will move on to the Q&A portion. A couple of ground rules. I'm going to hold the question. We want to really use our wonderful guest time wisely. So I'm going to start right here. You don't have a note card. I'm just kidding. It's okay. It's okay. It's fine. It's fine. Okay, so as succinctly as we can, what is your name?
Carrie.
And Carrie, what is your question?
I heard on WBEZ that the police can't share arrest information with ICE. I don't know if that's true, but what this article said was that ICE is using FOIA to actually get arrest records so that they can get information about arrests, addresses, relatives, whatever the hell they have in the system. So they're using the state's accessibility, right, FOIA. And apparently I wrote to my local alderman and they said to talk to the state representative. So I think it's a loophole that they're using, and if we could change that, that would be awesome.
Yeah, so that was why I had filed that bill back in January 22nd of 25, and it's still in assignments, but I'm working on trying to get it out. It's one of the loopholes that mi gente and other folks across the country have been exploring in other municipalities for a long time. So still working on getting that released. I will also say, am I in a safe room? There's a lot of federal fuckery, y'all. And so they're also using, for example, like Medicaid information, programs. Like we're literally talking about vital programs that people need to get health care and food and rental assistance and pass, all kinds of things, right? So there was also an inappropriate leakage of that information in other states, including in Illinois. So those are some of the things that when I talk about like what are we exploring right now in terms of state action in partnership with the legislature and the AG, that's on the list right now for sure. Keep writing us, because I will say on all of the principles that I've talked to you about, I know I've probably gotten close to about 1,000 emails on this matter. However, there's 68 other senators across the state, right? And we still have to be able to get to 30 plus votes on any one of these issues. So you all reaching out is incredibly helpful in terms of helping us roll call towards these kinds of issues.
Yeah, I also want to share on the data stuff. They've bought, and by they I mean ISDHS. They have also gotten access to Equifax or like buying data brokers, and so using that, they've also been doing that. And then we can expect back to part of the question around national, like if we can expect National Guard to be activated here in Illinois. I mean, again, we don't have a crystal ball, right? But we can expect that a lot of the things that they're doing are just gonna continue to escalate. And while we have not seen like the National Guard in our streets, the reality is that from the beginning of the administration, Trump deputized a lot of other federal agencies to do immigration enforcement work. And so while we may not see them in the way that they are in California, I mean, they could already pretty much be in the community. And the other thing too, which is the reason why we are moving rapidly to continue to grow the network, is because we know that there are areas in Illinois that don't have coverage. I think in Chicago, we have done a really good job at having a stronghold in a lot of the immigrant neighborhoods, predominantly immigrant neighborhoods, but we also need to continue to expand and have, ICE and as many communities as we can.
Who has a note card? Who has a note card? What is your name and what is your question?
Hi, my name is Debbie, and I wanted to know what the numerical number is. You keep referring to this hotline number. Could you please say the number? Because
Yes.
you keep referring to it. Nobody says what it is.
Hey,
It's a long number, so it's written.
does everyone have their phones out? Ready? Sorry. Okay, we're sharing it right here. Do you want me to read it out loud? Okay,
Yes.
we're good. Okay, this number 855?
Yes.
Okay, 855-435-7693. We have a bingo. Okay, do you have a question? Wonderful. What is your name? What is your question?
Kira, and I have a twofer. I keep saying, like, sometimes they say you should ask somebody detained what's your name, date of birth, family, phone number, or if you should not say anything, like what information if you do speak Spanish or know certain phrases, if you're recording it so you can contact family members. That's yes?
Yeah. Initially, I'm going to be honest, like initially one of the trainings that we started doing was like, ask the person, what their name, and then upon more, things that were happening, it's like, honestly, like, things happen so fast, so just ask for the person's, who can you contact? Because then you can then take that number down after things happen, then you can call and then you get to tell that person, and then you also get to respect people's privacy.
I also have a second question. Schools going to be starting again. Are you guys going to Zoom classes for families that are concerned, or are you guys...
Yeah, so actually, any CPS teachers here? Yeah, okay, yeah, awesome, thank you. There's actually been, so one thing, because we work with CPS on this, we know that they've done guidance, right, in terms of like what to do, a process and a protocol, on what happens if I shows up to schools. So definitely, I think that is like CPS should continue to do that. I think for purposes of as things are continuing to evolve rapidly, we are going to expand doing the rapid response trainings. I'll be honest, I started in March and I was only like I'm one staff in this department right now. So we're adding capacity, and so we want to make sure that we're also tailoring the trainings to the different audiences, because a rapid response training that I talked about that is 90 minutes, probably we need to adjust that for the school setting. To this just past month, right? The stuff that happened in Humboldt Park with DHS agents hanging out at the Puerto Rican Museum. What happened? The network got together. They were already trained. They work with the event organizers. The similar things are happening now, and so it's like, okay, we now have to not just solve for the summer events. We have to think about fall. We have to think about winter. So again, we're pivoting as things are also shifting.
If I could, really, really fast, there was a new state law that hasn't been signed by the governor yet, but that introduces basically, they call it the Safe Schools Law, passed by Representative Jimenez and Senator Karina Villa, that basically just like codifies that regardless of your immigration status, your right as a student is protected.
Great. Okay, we have another question back here. What is your name? What is your question?
My name's Kara, and my question is, it seems ICE is ignoring people's rights. We know that they are not paying attention to people's rights. So is it still useful to tell people their rights? You know, those red cards that I've been handing out and the door leaflets and everything, it says you have these rights, but if those are being ignored, can you talk to us a little bit about if we're misleading people or if it still is helpful?
I think it's helpful. I don't want my rights taken away. And I want every reminder every day, because sometimes it feels like I feel like I'm being gaslit by this administration, you know? So definitely I think it's still helpful, it's still important. I think we are in a moment where we are literally fighting for our rights, contesting what is legal and, you know, what isn't. And we have rights, so let's protect them. I think sometimes people make it like, well, you know, if I'm undocumented or there's a lot of noise that tells undocumented people that they don't have rights all the time. And I'm telling you this because for a really long time I grew up thinking that I didn't have rights and that I wasn't worthy of being in this country and that I had to be the model whatever immigrant so that my rights could be respected. And so I think just normalizing that everyone has rights regardless of immigration status is also a way that we fight back against the narrative that has been telling us that immigrants are not worthy and that, you know, we should be kicked out of here, because that's not true, right? And so what I was telling earlier, like, be vocal, be bold, be pro-immigrant, call out that xenophobic shit, because I mean, last time I checked, like, a lot of us, you know, have lineage that comes from other places. So yeah.
That there's this issue of capitulation in advance, right? Just because they tell some people they don't have the rights that we know they have doesn't mean that we're going to stop telling them they have these rights. Makes it more important for us to keep articulating these rights and not cede them in advance or ever. Right. Do we have one more question?
All right here. What is your name? What is your question?
My name is Sarah. I had kind of a follow-up question to, like, if you were to witness someone being detained or kidnapped off the streets and you get a video and you get their name or who they should you should contact, do you recommend us contacting them directly or reaching out to, like, your hotline?
Yes, call the hotline, because then again the live operators will be able to do that follow-up. Yeah, and then just to also, sorry, there's so much information. I swear I'll share this in the training if you attend again. On the 6th. The deportation defense piece is really important, because right now when people call, let's say that you call and someone is saying, hey, my loved one is in detention. Okay, the ecosystem of infrastructure, the ecosystem of support and care that we're building here doesn't stop there. There are organizations that actually have legal branches or legal arms, right? We have the Resurrection Project, we have the National Immigrant Justice Center, and others, right? So what's happening is that when people call and it's somebody's already in detention, they get to have that conversation with the live operator that then funnels that family or that person to a clinic or some type of initial legal intake, because immigration and any immigration lawyers in the room? Robin, where's Robin? No, but Robin would know how complicated the immigration system is, right? So you can't just put blanket statements on people's cases. Like, you really need to make sure that they are being connected to someone that is trustworthy, a credible source, a trusted community partner, so that they can have all those conversations, because it can get very tricky really quick. And honestly, sometimes people, what I mentioned earlier, like, people are calling the hotline wanting to leave, or sometimes people are calling the hotline asking, where can I get information about emergency preparedness plan, because I don't know, I want to be ready for when it happens. Yeah.
Before we thank our guests one more time, I want to point out that we're here on a Monday night when there is no band rushing to take over the room or the stage. So please stay, have more conversations with each other, with our guests, as long as they are able to be here, and order something at the bar because the Hideout is supporting us. Tip your bartenders, and thank you all for coming. Thank you, Senator Guzman.